Hey, what's up everybody, it's your boy Ryan here. So before I say anything, I'm sorry for not being able to upload for the previous 5, 6 or 7 days. It's time for back to school thingy and my schedule or timetable is overcharged. We're still waiting on the timetable and for the school to fix that crap, and so it can give us some time to go back to YouTube and start managing my time between school, working out and YouTube and yada yada. With that, I'm not gonna be able to upload the 1 hour long videos. If I did that, I might do it when I'm I don't go to school, probably Friday, Saturday. So yeah, and that also depend. With no longer ado, so let's begin with this story. The internship week came to an end, and the news broke to the Pro Heroes Hunter and his UA intern Siren had successfully captured Sane during the Hoso attack. Since they discovered his location while he was fighting the Pro Hero native and another UA intern, which went unnamed. The public was wondering who this Pro Hero Hunter was, but there wasn't much available information about them out in the public. The only things that they knew were that the hero was on the younger side of younger than Hawks, that he temporarily worked at UA due to high profile case, and that the Pro Hero was actually from America who was working in Japan for foreseeable future. That is the information that Izuku purposely leaked out to the public so that they would have some sort of information about him and not create too much crazy theories about him. However, outside of the topic, Izuku and Hitoshi had spent the remaining time of the internship training and looking into the League of Villains. Izuku knew it was risk to involve someone so inexperienced on the case, but Hitoshi's quirk made getting information out of villains so much easier and quicker than Izuku actually copied the quirk, since he found it so useful. As such, both of them worked through the villains that they got, interrogated them quickly, and had actually gained some information about the League of Villains. Izuku was able to pin the location down roughly in the prefecture surrounding the Tokyo area, which wasn't good in Izuku's opinion, since they were highly dense, which meant a lot of places that looked like in try to find them out. They also still had to find the location of the doctor, but at least they had more accurate information. Izuku ended up reporting the new information to the UN and American Commission, and they were pleased with the speed of the search and were happy that Izuku was starting to single in on the areas that the main league base was at, but they wished they could find the actual location of the doctor since he was the biggest threat. Soon though, it was time to return to UA, and Izuku kind of looking forward to the staff meeting about Ida, since Izuku just wanted the kid kicked out of the hero course for pulling the crap he did. Though Izuku accepted All Might and Green Tornado to advocate for a light punishment, which Izuku would find annoying since it was just another display of people with powerful quirks getting away with their crimes. As such, that is how Izuku found himself in the staff meeting room with the entire first year teaching staff, and the topic of discussion was one Tinya Ida. Nizu was reading the reports from police out loud so everyone could hear it, and they would talk about what they want to do with the students in question. So from the reports we can gather that Ida went after staying for revenge but ended up failing and needed to be saved, which our resident Pro Hero Hunter did with his intern. Now we need to discuss what we shall do with Mr. Ida, since the police chief of Hosu has referred his punishment to us and won't charge the boy with vigilantism with this event, since they could ever do to Izuku and his intern Hitoshi defeated Stain, and they only mentioned Ida as another intern that had gotten attacked alongside the Pro Hero native. Nizu stated and everyone was silent, and as Izuku predicted, All Might spoke up and talked about being lenient due to the emotional state that the boy was in, which drove his actions. Some of the staff nodded their heads at All Might's statement and talked about how they should have persuaded the boy from going and doing it, which just made Izuku roll his eyes at their statement since he had told Aizawa about Ida likely against, so Yue knew about it and decided not to prevent it. As they were all talking, Izuku decided to speak up. In honesty, the kid should be removed from the hero course. Yue already lowered its standard this year, and allowing him to stay in the hero course just means you're lowering your standards even more, Izuku stated, and the room was quiet at Izuku's insult to Yue, which he didn't hold back on. What do you mean lower our standards? Yue hasn't done that, All Might spoke up, and Izuku smirked. It has. Yue has zero tolerance bullying policy, which is meaningless and worthless now since Yue accepted 3 known extreme bullies. Now you are advocating the Yue allows an attempted murderer to stay in the hero course because that is what this is in the simple term. Teeny Aida went to Huso and knowingly was going to try and kill Stain in retaliation for Stain's attack on his brother that previously had left him crippled, so it will indeed be lowering Yue's standards once again, at least in my view, Izuku stated, and the room was silence. After Izuku's words, Inko decided to speak up as if this was about Izumi, Katsuki and Choro being in Yue, and Izuku shook his head and said it was just progression of Yue lowering his standard that he was pointed out. Yue is currently starting to walk on path of showing that if you have powerful quirk or powerful connection, then you get away scot-free of any meaningful punishment for your crimes. Izuku stated, and Aizawa nodded his head, but in all honesty, the man didn't want to kick the boy out of his class. He decided to speak up. I have to agree with Izuku, but also I don't want to kick Ida out of my class at this time since his actions were stopped. Izuku had warned me beforehand about Ida likely doing this, and I should have done more to stop him, which I didn't since I didn't think of a way to do it outside of having his internship rejected his request, which he only requested one. I should have forced him to go somewhere else in all honesty, but I didn't, so I think I shared the same of the blame for this, Aizawa stated, and the room was silent before he started to talk again. Izuku is right in the fact that Yue needs to to hand out a punishment that has actual meaning to it. So this is what I promise moving forward for Ida. 1, he won't be allowed to take the professional exam until we are sure he won't make repeat of this since we are considering giving them in the next semester. 2nd, he will be on probation for the rest of this semester. 3rd, he will be required to attend therapy with Hound Dog until he is approved to stop. 4th, he will be required to write a paper on the impact of vigilantism in our society. And 5th, he will be required to receive a mark on his license indicating he had committed a violation of hero laws, which won't directly state what he did, but it will still be there in the future. 6th, he will be required to give up his seat as a president of the class. And 7th, he will be required to serve detentions for every other day, so MWF for the rest of the semester, where he will be used as a pack mole for the staff or clean up the support department, Aizawa stated, and the staff thought it over, and Izuku spoke up, saying that he would be satisfied with that punishment since it penalized him heavily for his action and put him at a risk of losing his hero course spot if he stepped out of the line by even an inch. The rest of the staff quickly agreed, as well as it was a good dose of punishment, and they also were starting to agree with Izuku that they indeed did lower their standards if they let him off too easily. All Might and Green Tornado kept their mouths shut since it was clear that they were outvoted and the punishment was already done and over with. Soon they moved to the topics, and Izuku updated them all with the information that he and Hitoshi had gathered during their internship while looking for League of Villains. Nizu nodded his head and started to change his searching of the League of bases to those areas only, as they just kept closing the circle to be shorter and shorter. The next topic after that was what to do for the final exam since they needed to start a planning for it. Have them fight teachers, Izuku stated, and everyone looked at him. With the increase in threats, it will be better for the first year to actually have a bit more combat experience, so have them find the teachers. Have the teacher were heavyweights, so something to slow them down and pair 2 students against 1 teacher, and then a team of 3 for the last team due to the MV numbers. Izuku stated, and before anyone could say anything, Nizu agreed with the idea right away and accepted it. Let's do it, Power Loader. I have the support department to make ways to work for the exams, and we need to figure out the team placement for the exam before it's time for the exam, and then we have the exam made. Good job, everyone. Staff meeting dismissed. Nizu stated and walked out of the door, leaving everyone confused, but Izuku just rolled his eyes. Izuku knew it was because he didn't want objections, because he wanted to fight some students and torment them for a bit. So let it be known that Izuku is pretty a B word when it comes to getting revenge on people. It's been known for those close to him, and others quickly learn of it. So when Izuku was in a staff meeting, listening to how the students would be paired up and against who, it got decided that Izuku will be fighting Yagi, Todoroki and Bakugo. All Might and Grand Tornado tried to object it, since Izuku had this weak smile on his face that promised pain and suffering the entire time for those 3 individuals, but Nizu didn't want to hear objections, so to it, and had approved Aizawa's proposal. It was also decided that Stella Hitoshi would be fighting All Might, which earned the laugh out of Izuku, who turned to All Might and told him not to die too easily, which just scared the crap out of the teachers, since they were all wondering how powerful Izuku's girlfriend and now adoptive son were. Oh, on a side note, the adoption of Hitoshi had gone through, and he was not Hitoshi Midoriya, but they haven't told the class yet of the change, since Hitoshi wanted to teach people about it. Not even Yagi adults have figured out about the adoption, since they weren't there for the announcement that day in the staff room. Anyway, there was some time before the final exam, so Izuku decided to increase Hitoshi training, since he was getting far better with a catcher scarf from the training Aizawa and Izuku have been putting him through. Izuku though was starting to teach Hitoshi some other support gear as well, such as throwing knives that were laced with sleeping drug on them that would help put villains and his enemies to sleep. He did have some knives that were not laced with sleeping drugs as well, to use for regular things or close combat if he needed to. As such, Hitoshi was becoming more and more powerful hero in training, and they have also gotten him a mouth guard with a voice changer in it that still allowed his quirk to work, which meant he could disguise his voice and trick other people who would be trying to avoid answering his voice. Soon the time passed, and now it was time for the final exam. Izuku was smiling like a crazy when it finally came around, and Stella only told Izuku to not kill them, which he rolled his eyes at until he got glare from Stella, which he raised his hand in defeat at. Whipped, Hitoshi stated, and Izuku just looked at him for a moment before speaking. I don't see you disobeying her either now, do I? Izuku asked, and Hitoshi looked at him before smirking. But I am the son. I am meant to be respectful to my parents, so it's not me being whipped now, is it? Hitoshi said before walking away, leaving Izuku dumbfounded and feeling like he needed to smack his forehead in disbelief at his shiki son. Anyway, soon the 3 members of the family arrived at UA for the day final exam, and it went as about you can expect to it. Stella and Hitoshi fought All Might in the first round, and let us say All Might was a new scar from Stella's fire across his chest from the burns. All Might decided to open his mouth and made a comment about something stupid like they would need more than fire and metal work to take him on, which proved that they didn't need more than that, since All Might was dumb. Hitoshi had used his voice changer to change his voice to Izumi Yagi voice, and let's say All Might was stupid enough to answer, which allowed Stella to blast him with a large fire attack. Of course, they could have won by just putting the cuffs on him at that moment, but where is the fun is that? In that. When All Might was broken out of the mind quirk, he looked at his wound and saw a massive burn cross his chest from Stella, who was floating in the air with her wings of fire, and he got up and did a punch of air, but Stella just tanked the entire punch of the air, with her only being pushed back. All Might and everyone in control room was shocked, since the punch was strong enough to cause it to rain. How strong is she? Some students asked, and Izuku only laughed at the question, which earned him looks. She's strong enough to fight me for a good portion of time, and my father and I can both wipe the floor with All Might easily, Izuku stated, and Yagi, Todoroki and Bakugo were shocked at what they just learned and wondered who the hell Izuku's biological father was. Then they heard a crash and looked back at the screen to see Dust Cloud. All Might was in a crater with a capture gear around his neck, shocking him out, and Stella holding All Might's arms down with fire that was burning him slightly as she learned how to control the temperature of the flames. Recovery Girl saw signs of him losing his form and stepped in and called the match. All Might loses due to health concern. This decision is called by Recovery Girl as the head of medical for UA. She stated that everyone in the intercom and everyone except Izuku was stunned at the result. Even Nizu was shocked a bit at the result of how badly All Might lost, because halfway through the fight Stella had targeted the weights and broke them off. All Might was fighting half of the time full ability through he didn't use 100% of One for All. He was fighting like he would any other day, and that said a lot of the two abilities. Soon it was time for the 3 versus 1 match. Izuku made his way out to the field and he long had crows in the sky flying before the match even started. Izuku sat down right in the center of the fake city and didn't move. He had the crows flying in the air and just viewed them from them. No one except him knew that he could control the shadows from distance, and it only required visual of the shadow and the area, which meant he didn't even need to move due to having the crows. Izuku heard the buzzer and announced that the 3 had entered the city. He had a crow find them and smirked, which confused everyone in the control room. Even Stella was confused since she hasn't seen him just sit down and do nothing. However, they were all shocked when an explosion of shadow happened right next to the 3 students and tossed them into the side of the building. They then all looked at Izuku where he was and saw he had his eyes closed and his hand out forward with the shadows moving around his hand. Is he really able to attack from that far for a distance? Asked one of the teachers, since they never knew if he could do that. The students and staff just watched in shock and at how Izuku was fighting, and even All Might, who was hidden in the medical tent in his skinny form, were in shock at what he was watching. The 3 children kept pushing forward, but no matter what they tried or did, they couldn't even move past 2 blocks worth of distance in the fake city. Nizu was thinking the test was over and realized that the 3 students had 0 chance of winning, which wasn't meant to be to happy. They were meant to have some form of chance winning via running away. So he went on intercom and asked Izuku to decrease his strength since they needed some chance of winning. Izuku just rolled his eyes and had a bit and shrugged. They couldn't hear they could hear him via mic on the drone near him as he spoke. Fine, I'll give them a chance. Can they hear me? Izuku asked, and turned to Izuku's audio from the drone to the entire city. They can now, Nizu said, and Izuku nodded his head and said, "Just going to change a bit. Instead of fighting you we'll fight one of my shadows. I only put 5% of my power into these clones, so if you have a better shot at defeating them and they can't control the shadows from distance like I have been doing it, we'll have to do more close combat with limited range combat. I will be exiting the ring though, so if you can destroy my clones it will count as a win as well," Izuku stated as he made the clone and made wings on his back shadow and flew out of the city. Everyone was in shock, but Nizu allowed it and contained the exam or continue the exam. The 3 students felt ashamed of themselves that they couldn't even take Izuku since he didn't even move an inch from his starting spot. Soon they encountered the shadow clones and fight started. Bakugo tried to blow the clone up since they were allowed to destroy it, but just dodged the attack and teleported via the shadow nearby to dodge the attack. Everyone was shocked at how well the shadow clone was fighting since it was only 5% of Izuku overall power, and that was terrifying. Soon the entire time lapsed for their exam it was called. They had failed to even touch the shadow clone with the 3 of them, and it was far weaker version of Izuku that just showed his overwhelming power and how much distance was between them. Izuku though was just smirking as he enjoyed tormenting them with the overwhelming power. Stella thought was in shock since Izuku had never shown that overwhelming power when fighting her, and she asked him and everyone turned to him. "Of course I wouldn't. I love you so I never thought to crush your spirit. But they on the other hand, I don't give 2 crap for it, so if I crush their spirits, it's entertain me," Izuku stated, and they all shuddered to that except Stella and Hitoshi. So sadistic tendencies run in our family now. I'm glad I got adopted by an awesome father, Hitoshi stated, and everyone turned to him in confusion, except most of the staff since they knew. Well, Almighty Green Tornado didn't. Izumiyagi, who was in shock, asked what he was talking about. Hitoshi turned to her with a wicked grin and started talking. I guess it was going to come out sooner or later. Didn't think I would be on this one to spoil it, but Izuku adopted me since as his son. I'm Hitoshi Midoriya now, and whenever Stella marries him, she becomes my mother's as well, but I already call them mom and dad since they care for me like that already, Hitoshi said as he drank some of his coffee that Izuku pulled out of his shadow, from Hitoshi, and everyone turned to Izuku looking at him. Izuku just shrugged his shoulder a bit and said, what? He is a chaotic gremlin like me, so I wanted him, so I took him. Threw his foster parents in jail for the crimes they committed and persecuted the government to give his custody to me as for foster parents, and one thing led to another and I adopted him as my son. Stella taken the mother role quite well as well, but our family has never been traditional from the start. As such, please call him Midoriya from now on, Izuku stated with a big grin, and everyone shuddered at it. All Might, Green Tornado, and Izumiyagi were confused about how feel in learning this news. Nizu thought jumped in at the silent called the exam to an end and said everyone was free to go. Izuku, Hitoshi, and Stella all walked away and left the room that was still stunned behind. With that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry for not being able to upload for the last 6 days, but don't worry, I'll try to fix up my upload schedule when my school to decide to give us the correct timetable, which is the one not overshot. But yeah, stay home, stay safe, wash your hands, and spend the time with the most precious people you have. Take care of yourself because you're most important individual person we know in our channel. And also don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, it helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, yada yada yada. And see you next video. Peace out, bye bye.